Good evening, everyone. Welcome to All Access Live with Kevin Rankin. Thank you so much for being here. I would love it if you do me a favor. If you come here anywhere other than YouTube, do me a favor and go to the link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin and subscribe to this channel. You're going to want to make sure that you like this video and share it with everybody. If you enjoy it and you look through the other videos that I've got, you may want to actually become a member. So members have exclusive benefits. There are certain videos that you can see only for members, and I also have swag packs that I will be giving away. Some Kevy Metal stickers, a flock of seagulls merchandise, and access to some of the shows that we have upcoming. So go to youtube.com/@accesskevin, subscribe, like, and share. Also, I've got an amazing sponsor for this show, and if you're interested in playing guitar, you want to be a rock star like my next guests, you can go to fivestarguitars.com/all-access-live. Everything you see there, you're going to have a discount, and then you check out. You can use the promo code of all-access-15 to save you 15%. And if you're ordering outside of Oregon, then you're going to find that there's no sales tax in Oregon. So you're saving a ton of dough. You're also paying no sales tax, and you'll get a discount, and you'll support a channel that has indeed shared support from me. So my next guests, if you were a fan of the 80s and you grew up roller skating or dancing in discos and you enjoyed fun pop music, there's no doubt that you recognize a few of the songs that these ladies did. But more importantly, to me, I've found dynamic women that I've gotten to share the stage with that I've just discovered to be incredibly personable and fun. They're here to discuss upcoming shows and their life. I've got Danielle, McKee, Kim Rowe, and the ringleader, Christina Criscione. How you doing, ladies?
Great.
Excellent. How are you?
How are you?
Oh my goodness, this is cool. I was admiring the backdrops here, and Christina, you've got what looks to be an old English mirror behind you. So is this do the three of you ladies have to gather around that thing to prepare when you go out on stage?
Sometimes.
That's it. Yeah.
Mirror on the wall.
I've seen it, man. I've seen the hustle a few times when we've got those quick throw and go or something. Yep. But
it's not that glamorous behind the scenes.
This is true. So one of the things that we can discuss today is most people that see you guys up on stage, they see the glamour and the glitz, and they might think that everything behind the stage is laden with limos and gold leaf, but that's not always the case, is it?
No.
Maybe in the 80s.
That's yeah.
Maybe.
Well,
Christina can
Maybe. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, but we create our own golden glitz.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. I've seen it. Even in the worst and the most difficult situations, I think I've seen you guys from parking lots in Long Beach all the way to my favorite venue that we do on a lot of these 80s circuits is that Mountain Winery in Saratoga.
Oh, so pretty.
love it.
Yeah.
Incredible. So yeah, no complaints about that venue whatsoever.
Wow.
I think
Yeah.
I think my fave all time with you, Kev, was at the Greek Theater.
Yes.
When
Oh
we
my
came
God.
back from the pandemic and we were like, oh my God, it's so good for all of us to be together. It was like one big family, like all of us bands. And it was like, I could have died then and been totally fine.
Yeah,
That
as far
was
as
a great gig.
Yeah.
bucket list items. So
For sure.
just just before that one, we did one of those events at the Greek Theater, and I could say this now. I don't think without getting myself in trouble, but in the dressing rooms, the main dressing room up above, when we first came in there, the promoter for the show came in, the local facility person, and they said, "Hey, drummer, you know who was in that seat last night? We had Ringo Starr in that very seat." And I was like, oh my
Wow.
God, this legend, right? The Beatle. And they
Right.
were showing us the room, and against the room, they had these glass panels and the old, stereo systems where you'd push on a glass panel and open it up and you'd have your record player that you could put your
Oh,
records on.
yeah.
Well, they had that against the wall, and behind one of those windows was a ladder that went up through a skylight onto the roof of the Greek Theater.
Oh my God.
And
Oh,
at that
wow.
point, there's no way I can't climb on top of the Greek, right? So while Dramarama was playing, I climbed up through the roof. You could see the Griffith Observatory
man.
from up there. And
Wow.
you're looking directly down over thousands of people in the stars and you've got a bird's eye view right on top of the stage. It was super dicey, it was like slippery, but I was thinking, just like Kim said, I could die right now and I'd be a happy man,
Yeah.
right? Because this is a
Wow.
It was so good. We were
bucket list. But you guys have done a bunch of big gigs.
Yeah.
I lost Kim for a second. She
no. I
froze
was
up.
going to say
Hey, Kim,
at the Greek when we did the up in the ladder and like overlooking everything, we were everybody in the seats performing and like say anything is like babes. I don't know if that's the thing. Anything songs. And it was
That's
my
them.
mom's birthday on me, and like the wind was perfect. It was just like the whole world girls, right? And we were like, oh, this is like as if
Yeah, man, that you those gigs. So the gigs that that the ladies are talking about, guys, if you're watching this, this happened to be one of the Lost 80s live package shows that had a whole series of bands from the 80s. I think it was Dramarama, Flock of Seagulls. I think Wang Chung was on that gig.
No, I don't think so. They weren't on that one.
Not on that one. Okay.
No.
I knew there were probably 7 or 8 bands at least on that
Yeah,
gig.
but it was Wang Chung, you're right. It was Flock of Seagulls, a couple other bands for sure.
Yeah. And
Maybe
it's
Naked
like,
Eyes.
Yep.
probably so. Yep. And it really is like a family reunion for us, for the fans that get to go out and they get to see these songs that they grew up listening to. But for us, these are all the bands that we've gotten to know as friends, right? And family over the last several years. And man, the pandemic was tough, right?
Yeah.
That was a tough thing for everybody. So to be able to reconnect on stage at that amazing, beautiful venue, perfect weather, one of the most iconic places in America, right?
Yeah, and
that was-
Richard Blade in the middle of it all, who's
Right.
just so happy all the time to be up on that stage and bringing all that energy. He really, really puts a smile on everyone's face, like, don't you think?
He always does. He's got
Yeah.
such a great vibe. He's getting a star on the
I know.
Hollywood Walk of Fame.
I was going to say,
how cool is that?
Very cool. He deserves it. I mean, I've never met somebody who is a walking encyclopedia of music like he is. I mean, there is literally, he is like Google Richard Blade for any question you have about any music in the 80s, and he knows it. He's unbelievable. And he's just always coming with such a positive, like upbeat vibe.
Yeah,
Totally.
he's just
Yeah.
dancing on the stage, just like it's the 80s again. And just,
You know what
when
I wanted to say, Kevin, I think what's so cool about, whether it's FKA or Bobby D or, the 80s package we were just talking about, in the 80s, we all really did not get to hang out with each other. We were all doing our own separate things. And I think what's really unique about all of these packages now is that we all get to meet each other. The artists have all gotten to meet one another. And like you said, it's become like a really special, like, family meeting when we get together in these gigs, because we don't see each other sometimes for a year since the gigs passed. And then we just get to all catch up with each other, which is really, really nice. I think for all of us, it is for me at least.
Totally. Yeah. We get spoiled a little bit.
yeah.
Christina, you mentioned that back in the 80s that didn't happen. So what was going on in the days of the Flirts back then that kind of prohibited you from getting connected to all the other bands and these gigs?
Because this is what I'll say. In the United States, everybody was out doing their own gigs. We were usually all one-offs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And doing the big gigs wherever they were. What I will say is that was really neat. And when we did 2 world tours, we were in Europe, we did South America. Again, it was just the band, whomever that might have been, the Flirts, Flock of Seagulls, whatever it was. What I will say was neat, though, in the 80s were the television shows. Because there was one television show, I will never, ever forget it. It was in Brennen, Germany. And there had to have been 15 artists there for this lot. And also you have to remember, there were no cell phones back then. There was no Google. There was no computers. It was like a completely different vibe for those gigs, for getting to a gig, for directions, like for everything. And there wasn't like all the digital technology that we have today. Most shows were live back then. And so we had a live show in Brennan. Boy George was there, Aha was there, Dire Straits was there, Frankie Goes to Hollywood was there, Jennifer Rush was there. I mean, I can't even remember everybody who was there, but those television shows back in the 80s in Europe, because they didn't have them so much here. Like Dick Clark would have one artist on, he wouldn't have a whole bunch of people on. But back in Europe, they would have these huge, huge shows with all of these artists. And that was really cool. So that was a neat thing where we'd all get to meet each other, but that didn't happen here in the States.
Do you get stage fright with the TV show stuff? No, not at all. No,
I mean, my game goes up. My game
Yeah.
goes up. Like
Good.
I definitely feel my adrenaline level go up a little bit. But I mean, Danny, Kim, and I have worked really, really hard to make this show what it is today. When I first put the group back together again in 2011, I found Kim, and we worked on this show every single weekend for 1 year, except for 2 holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas, because we both have day jobs. And we found Danny, and she came in, and I had pulled choreography off of everything I could find on YouTube. And then I hired a choreographer and said, I want you to come in and fill in the blanks here. I don't want it to be slick and cool. I want it to be, and if you want to call it dorky 80s, make it dorky 80s, right? It needs to be right in this like same vein here. So we hired a choreographer, Michelle Hansen, who was just incredible, who worked with us on weekends. And at that time, I lived in San Clemente, and Danielle and Kimmy were driving down from LA. And I recreated the costumes from the album Made in America. I had people helping me make medals. I had people finding me marine jackets. Like, this truly was an act of love on in a lot of ways, for my passion and for our passion of this. I had thought about doing this a couple of years prior to this, and I'm like, no. And the reason is I knew it was going to take this much work. And I had always said to myself, if the Flirts is not going to be what it was in the 80s, as good, then I don't want to do this. And funny enough, one of our very first shows, Richard Blade was there in LA. Danny Sanchez had hosted it. It was like 1984 was the name of the club. I don't remember exactly. But the next day, friends of mine who had Sirius radio, I don't have that, called me up and said that Richard Blade, they heard him on the radio that day. And I mean, it was such a compliment, because he said, oh my God, I just saw the Flirts this weekend. And he said, it's like you're going back in time like mad science. Like, you would think you stepped off a time machine and you went back to the clubs in the 80s. And that was probably the highest compliment that you could have paid, because that's exactly what I wanted to do. We really, when we go out there, want to like make people feel like they're like 40 years ago back in a club, like having a great time, kind of just visiting, and just, you can almost feel, touch, and taste like that sensation of when you were in your 20s, just rocking out and having a great time.
That's the escape. Absolutely.
Was that Florentine Gardens?
Keep cutting
You're
out.
breaking up, Kim.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Kimmy, you broke up for just a second there.
Was that in Florentine too?
No.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you guys really quick, because Christina, you mentioned back in 2011 is when you put things together back with Kimmy. So maybe I could have Kim tell first, and then Danielle. Maybe you guys tell me about the call that you got from Christina, and how did it end up that you guys ended up becoming Flirts? Oh, Kim just disappeared. Well, maybe her connection will get better. So, Danny, you first. Why don't you tell us about when Christina tracked you down and added you as a flirt?
Well, I was already a musician in LA doing my thing, doing a lot of session work, and I think it was in a studio one day, and somebody came up to me and asked me if I would be willing to do a project. I can't remember. I auditioned for something, and then that person let Christina know about me. And so she reached out to me. And honestly, at first I'm like, the Flirts, it sounds familiar. And of course I had to go look it up, and then, Don't Put Another Dime in the Jukebox obviously rung a bell for me. And, but it was just it felt so real. And then we went and met at like a sushi spot, and it was just a really, really casual first meeting, over a glass of wine, maybe, I think, and just chatting about like our lives and experience, her story, her backstory on the Flirts, and my backstory of singing background in the past for Nelly Furtado and all the other things I had done up to that point. And she said, okay, you know what? I think I trust you. Like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And we have a gig in a month or something like that.
Oh,
wasn't
nice.
It?
Yeah. Danny got on board really flipping fast.
And we had I think it was 12-song lineup with choreography, something that I've never had to do is real choreography where you're counting out the moves.
Really? Yeah.
It was like boot camp. I was getting whipped.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Well, you had the vision, right, Christina? I mean, you knew that this is what you wanted out of the end product. And, people might not realize watching the show how much work goes into what you guys do. It's not just remembering the words and singing these melodies, but there's so much of the show. It's a full-on show business presentation.
The singing is
when missing person. Sorry, Danny, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the singing is the easiest part. Getting like the outfits and timing everything together and making that exciting pop moment, in the choreography really gets the fans. That's when they scream and you can't believe how excited they are about these little moments. But those things have to come off right. And Christina always emphasized that to me, and she was right. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like silly because like even in Helpless, we have a move that's kind of like a Temptations move where they're going bump, 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 right? And it's probably one of the simplest moves that we do out of all the choreography. But what's so funny is when you just see three girls and they're perfectly synced and their arms are coming up and it's got that cool like jive to it. It's like the audience in the middle of the song like erupts, like they appreciate that little moment. And we work really, really hard to make sure that that's there. Like Missing Person saw us one of the first times at the winery, funny enough, right?
Yeah.
It was the first time. So we gigged with Dale Bazio, and I love her to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And she was there during our sound check, and we didn't get to see her then, but when we came off stage, she was just absolutely so kind and so sweet. She goes, oh my God, it's like watching a Broadway 80s show with you girls.
That's true. Yeah, it is like that. Yeah.
And it's so nice. Like, and what's nice is that cements actually what I wanted to do. Like it cements the work that Danielle and Kimmy and I all put into this. I agonize about our costumes. I agonize about our costume changes. Like it's got to be different. It's got to be that. But what I really have to say is that it's really to create a pop for the audience every time we're with them. It's like us honoring our fans, really.
Yeah. Well, you can tell watching the show from the side. I've been fortunate enough to be out in the crowd watching you guys. I've been able to play drums with you a couple of times. And then on the side of the stage, watching what goes into the production. And the most unbelievable thing to me is how quickly you guys do costume changes and the elaborate costumes that you guys have. I mean, there's serious work that goes into this. Yeah. I'm sure Dale probably appreciates that because she was known for those back in the day, right? In the 80s, she had, you guys don't come out with fish bowls around your bosoms, but but not yet. But the costumes. Now, Christina, you mentioned that you had gone back and you looked at, the original outfits from back in the day and you tracked down some of these outfits. like Kimmy, did you have experience in some of this before? Some of the choreography and some of the sort of elaborate dance and the other things that go along with the shows besides just singing?
As far as what, like challenges or?
Yeah, I mean, had you done that kind of?
Choreography, costumes.
I mean, I've done film, I've done television, you know, I've done a lot of that. So, I mean, they just, I don't, this internet is super spotty. I'm just going to do the best I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm frozen on a
Yep.
thing.
With a nice
I mean,
smile.
when you're on set, like they just throw you in wardrobe and you're like, oh, you look so cute. And then they're like, oh, you need to pluck your eyebrows. Let's do that for you. Oh, let's put makeup on you. Let's do your hair. Let's try this. So it's like you get to, you know, be made up as a glam doll, you know, and then as long as you know your lines and you hit your mark and you're in character, you know, life is good. I think, you know, with the flirts, it's like it is very similar to being on set because it's so much fun, right? And it's like we
Yeah.
get to live our dream. And also the three of us have like a sisterhood. Like, I mean, I would do anything for my girls, you know what I mean? And I feel the same way, you know, I think, you know, before we go on, we're backstage and we have our moment, you know, and, you know, we all put our hands together and we say a little prayer and we're like, we're here to have fun. You know what I mean? And if we're not having fun,
Yeah.
then what's the point? And then we go out and we interact with each other and we rock it, you know? And then
That
we bounce off and we're like, woohoo.
yeah, it's like it's a team thing for sure.
Yeah, I have to say what's really been neat on this journey is that the three of us, it was really interesting. We did a gig in Miami a few months ago with Charlie Rodriguez, and it was a super fun gig. We had not seen each other in a long time. I actually was on the West Coast and I moved subsequently. I'm here now. I'm back home on the East Coast, but Danielle and Kim and I hadn't seen each other. And it was so nice to see one another. Like we took a 5-mile walk on a beach.
Yeah.
Danny's our food girl. She found the best place for us to get like
Stone crab, baby.
Stone
Yes.
crabs.
Yeah.
Florida stone
And
crab.
we just had such a fun time. And for me personally, I found that as time has come along since 2011 to here we are, like I can't actually believe it's 224. I can't believe we've known each other that long, but the sisterhood and the camaraderie has really grown, and it kind of translates a little bit too in the performance and an energy of a performance. I think when we first started, everybody was more like, you know, everything has to be perfect. And now there's just much more of a cohesiveness with all of us, which is like really nice. And I just feel like the friendship has evolved over the years. And I agree with Kimmy. I think, you know, there's a real love for one another here, and that's really cool.
Yeah, man, the relationship part of music is something that people that don't play music professionally might not understand, right? Because you're around each other a lot and the stakes are high, right? You've got, in your case, right, you've got the three of you that not only have the gig to worry about, but there's a brand representation that you have on stage. And so when somebody comes away from, say, the Greek Theater or Mountain Winery and their reflection on the show, the first thing they're doing is they're talking about the show online, right? They're going to social media and they're talking to their friends about it. And so if they say, oh my God, just like Richard Blade said, I felt like I was back in 1983 again. You know, it was when life didn't get complicated. I was, you know, I didn't have to worry about taxes and politics and bills and all those things. But for a brief period of time, I was just able to relax and have a good time with these girls. And so the reputation carries on. And you've done that, you know, in a bunch of different environments. We talked about the different package shows. One thing that I'm fascinated by, Christina, you don't forget a name. You know, like in developing relationships in this business, it's all about who you know, right? It really is. And I love that Christina will come off the stage and some, you know, from another agency or another promoter might come up and that person's locked into your brain. You'll never forget that person, you know? And I think it's so important to develop those relationships for any opportunities, right, down the road. And one thing I noticed, you guys, you don't squander any of those opportunities at all. It's really it's a cool thing. It's easy sometimes to take things for granted, you know, when you're tired and you're wiped out and maybe logistically some things didn't go right on stage or whatever. And so in my mind, sometimes I forget how fortunate we are to be where we're at, right? Um, but the amount of work that you guys put in, I was thinking about some of these shows, the costumes, the elaborate choreography. You've done a lot of travel. You guys have done some gigs a long way away, right? And we're trying to connect with some more. We just did that Philippines show, right? I was telling you, Christina, and I want
Yeah.
to,
Oh
I would
man,
love, because you guys would
want to
kill
go.
it there. Oh my
Oh,
God,
We're
yeah,
gonna
you
get
guys,
there.
That's on our
We'll
bucket
get,
list.
yeah,
for
we'll
sure.
get there. I just have to
Yeah.
get in touch with that promoter there because
Yeah.
funny enough, there's a huge in LA, there's a huge contingency of Filipino people, and people have reached out from LA saying, "Oh my God, people back in the Philippines would love to have you guys." I've had fans reach out to me on my Facebook page, so it's something I just have to work on. But I want to share something, just tapping onto what you said. When we were in Miami and we were all walking, the three of us, we're all workoutaholics. So that's a good thing, right? That's a good workoutaholic thing to have. But,
yeah,
Danny said something and it really resonated with me. And it's like, she said, we are so lucky at this time, at our age, to be doing this, to be doing these shows, to have these gigs. And I don't take one gig for granted, and neither do the girls.
yeah,
We feel really blessed and we feel really fortunate that we get to do this. I mean, at my age, if you ever asked me if I thought I'd be doing this at my age, I would have probably said no,
sure,
um, and it's interesting. I think the universe or God, the power that be, speaks to you. Like when I decided to do this again, I'd gotten a phone call from somebody in Canada actually, and they said they'd love to have you in Johannesburg to do a gig. And that just I went, okay, like if I had been thinking about it and said no probably 10 times, that was the catalytic moment. And I went, okay, I know this is going to be a ton of work, but I'm going to invest in this now. And Danny and Kim invested in getting this together to do this now too. And I think about it, I'm like, thank God I got that phone call, because I might not have been doing this with these girls right now. It's those magical kismet little moments that just come into your life as gifts, I feel. And you make that magic happen, if you choose to.
okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. Danny brought up to you the idea of you being so lucky at that point, and I talk in the show a lot about luck versus fortune. And I always ask people whether they really truly feel like they're lucky or they're fortunate, because there's no way that you guys would continue to be doing these shows if you hadn't put in the time and the effort and done all the work it takes to get to that point. Christina, if you hadn't gotten the phone call, that was maybe luck, right? That was a lucky thing or a fortunate thing that this person just called.
Fortunate, yeah,
But oh my
yeah.
God, you've all three got incredible talent and fortitude and tenacity. When Christina, you and I talked about this the other day, like your tenacity and perseverance. If you didn't have those things, then there's no way for so many of these opportunities to come up. People that don't play music for a living, they just think everybody's lucky, right? It's a roll of the dice. They think that things just show up.
Yes.
You wake up and, oh, look, this morning, it's Wednesday, May 22nd. We just got a gig offer at the Greek Theater and we're going to get it. We're going to make millions of dollars.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen, right?
No.
I think you also create the life that you want to live. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, as an example, I think it's a combination of being blessed and lucky and fortunate. It's like
Mhm.
Christina will send out, a text like, "Are you?" And I'm already like, "Yes."
Yes.
"Can
Yeah.
you?" And I'm
Right.
like, "Yes." I don't know what it is or what it
The answer
is
is
or
yes.
how it is, but like some way, somehow, I'm gonna make it work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
it's like, and creating that space to make it happen. Wherever I've been over the past from 2011 to today, for example, you know, I just say yes, and then everything falls into place. And when it doesn't, it's like, well, too bad, too sad. I will figure it out on the other end when I get back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because life's
Y-
too short. You know, that's how I
Absolutely.
feel.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you know,
my mom has said to me, I talk to my mom every day. My mom is 90 and one of the smartest, most incredible women I know. And I do. I talk to her every single day if I'm in the United States. And the one thing that she has said to me like over and over, she's said, Christina, if there's one thing, you were tenacious even when you were two, like,
yeah.
you know, and I will say, I also believe very strongly in hard work. I'm a huge believer in hard work. You know, there are those fortunate moments, right? And then it's, are you ready for that, right?
Yeah.
Um, when I first became, so just going way back in the way back wheel, you know, I was a classically trained opera singer. I had to do Miss New Jersey. I did my reign. I came up to
Well,
New York.
hold on a sec. You gotta slow this down. Oh my God.
Wait,
Okay, so
what?
classically trained opera singer, and then you became Miss New Jersey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
I
So
was
You know
you,
this, Kevin?
So I was Miss New Jersey in the Miss America pageant, and I had to complete my duties for the year. And a couple of things. So I was accepted to the Juilliard School of Music in Manhattan School of Music for my master's degree, actually. And I even got a partial scholarship to Manhattan School of Music, which is pretty unheard of because everybody wants to go there.
sure.
But what I will tell you is I'm dyslexic, extremely dyslexic. I've been tested. I have a solid 3 forms of dyslexia. And I could not learn languages.
Mhm.
And this is when I really believe like the God power thing comes in here because you know, could have gone to school there and got my master's degree. I would have loved to have had a career as a professional opera singer, to be honest with you. But the language would have been a real problem for me. And you have to learn at least 3 languages fluently to be successful in that industry. But what happened was a bunch of misses all came up. Miss Arkansas was up, Miss Tennessee, North Carolina, Connecticut. And we would go on auditions together with each other. And I would go on auditions just to audition to get better, right? Because I also had to untrain classically to start singing pop, which is not as easy as it sounds, actually.
Sure.
And so I was with Miss North Carolina, and we had gone on a cruise audition. I had no interest in going on a cruise, but I went to audition, right? So, but I did see an ad in Backstreet, which is or Backstage, because that's how we would get our auditions back in the day in the 80s, right? And you'd look
Yeah.
in the paper to see what's going on. And so there was an ad for looking for a lead singer for a rock band. But the ad read fairly nefariously. And I said to Elizabeth, I'm like, do you want to come up for this? She goes, no, I'm hungry. I'm like, if I don't come down in 20 minutes, you know, come and get me, right? So the producer dropped the needle on the record and said, can you sing this? And you have to remember, I just came out of 4 years of college, madrigals, choir, opera competitions. And so my ear was good. Everything was good. And I sang it back. And both Joe Lodato and Bobby Orlando were like, can you do this? So 2 weeks later, I was signed to a record deal, which my life should be that easy. Yeah.
Right.
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 But
you had paid those
I
dues to get there.
ready. You know, I had
Yeah.
worked really hard. I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours practicing, you know, in a 2x4 practice room when I was in college, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, like you didn't get to be a good drummer without sitting there for hours and figuring it out, right? And making sure you were on it with that metronome and just like everything, right? So I think that people, I think it's important that people know that, yeah, there's fortune, but you kind of have to have done the work when fortune
Yeah.
knocks at your door.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And even then, and I do discuss this a lot on the show. If you've developed the fundamental skill in your particular trade, then yeah, that box is checked. But the relationship piece, the ability to communicate with people is then a huge component, right? I talk about this being at least 75% of the deal, because relationship connections and being able to be a good hang is what keeps you in the gig, right? I mean, we've all been in situations where, your skill may have gotten you into a situation, but if there's somebody there that is a real pain in the ass to be around, then like, no matter how good they are, right? It's not worth it. And so
Yeah.
it's I'm picturing you with that classically trained foundation. What would have happened in Christina's life at this point if you'd stayed in that career and you had you've gone on to tour and do operas around the world? Did you have a fire for rock and roll? Did you have a fire for the stage that was different
So
than?
funny enough, there were three things. At 7 years old, I told my mom I was going to be in the Miss America pageant. She wanted nothing to do with pageants. That was a no-no to my mom. Catholic upbringing, the whole whatever. I told my mom at 10 I was going to be in a rock band. And I used to go to this park near my house. There was a big soccer field. And I used to go there and I used to fake play an organ, which I can't play. And like have my own fantasy in the middle of this park that I was like playing like rock and roll. And so you know what? I've had a lot of dreams come true. I've been really, really, really blessed that way. But I've worked to make some of those dreams come true, as well. So, I mean, I think all of us in this group have. I mean, Kim with her acting, Danny with her music. I mean, Danny is a really talented writer as well. She's had songs that have been put on movie tracks. Danny's harmonies and I are magical. Like, I could not pick somebody else to do harmonies with me in the most perfect world. She is. It's like, I really feel like the good Lord put us together in that way. When you sing, you have something that's called overtones. So when you hear just an A, it's not just A. You've got all these other notes that are spinning on top of it, right? And Danny and I, like, our overtones are spinning with each other. That is so unusual to find that. And so I feel really lucky to have found Danny, because when those harmonies are happening with us, it's really magical.
Yeah, that's a special thing. Okay, so maybe let's have each of you guys speak on this, because Christina, you talked about being 10, telling your mom you want to be a rock star. Who were you listening to back then? Who was a sort of an inspiration for you?
Fleetwood Mac was huge for me.
Oh yeah, Stevie or Christy?
Nicks.
Okay, yeah. Stevie Nicks. How about you, Danny?
I also told everybody I could tell at the age of, it was like 12, I think, that I was going to be a singer. And I said I was going to move to New York. It was LA but instead of New York, but close. And I loved Madonna. I told everyone I was going to meet Madonna too. So it could still happen. We'll see.
You haven't met Madonna yet?
Haven't
or
met
Madonna
her,
she hasn't gotten to meet you.
She hasn't met me yet, but right. I do have like 1 degree of separation in 2 different directions. So it's there, but yeah. And I started early too. I started right around that age with piano and then singing, and I really fancied myself a little rock star as a kid too.
Where were you when you were that age?
Pardon?
12.
You were in Toronto at that age? At 12, you were in Toronto?
I was in Toronto, yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah. How about you, Kimmy?
I don't remember at 10, but in junior high, I was definitely listening to the Pretenders, Bruce Springsteen, David Bowie, Prince. Those were probably my biggest. I actually went to a Pretenders concert when I was in 8th grade, and I got Martin Chambers' drumstick.
Oh, nice.
Little drummer. And then my stepdad wanted to give me an Academy Award because my mom fed me lima beans and I like fell off my chair pretending I was going to die. And he was like, you need to be an actress. So that was probably when I was 10.
That's
He
it's
does
interesting.
that a
Like
lot.
My mom left the room disgusted.
We won't find lima beans on the rider for the flirts when we're backstage. Is that? Do you like them
I
now
have no
though?
writer. I'm just grateful to be there.
I now
Yeah.
know this, so this is some important information for us to have. Actually, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
You
know,
know,
it's like I'm learning so much about you. Like we're all soul sisters, and I'm like, ooh, I had no idea.
Yeah. That. Do you?
This is
Okay. So
juicy.
if you guys got to assemble your rider, what's one thing you have to have on the
Oh,
the
boy.
list?
Each one of
Are you
us is something different for sure.
Okay. All right. So yeah,
You
what's
know
what's
what?
one
We are
must
so
have?
low maintenance. Honestly, like people are shocked. Like it's like almost nothing. Like
Yeah, we
water
don't
on
get-
stage. Yeah, we don't have a long rider wrist at all. Like, we recently did a gig in Chicago with Dito Lamaro, and it was really nice. It was a really funky, cool, like old school rock and roll venue, the brick, and the bar to the side, and it like 1,000 people capacity. And but because it was old school, they didn't have 3 wireless mics. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think I had to ask for wireless mics anymore. You know what I mean? And so we had one, which was good. But I mean, it's like we are so basic. What I love about the 3 of us is there's not one diva in the group. Like
Yeah.
we do what we need to do,
I'm only laughing because I already told you, like my band is full of them. So
Like I'll share something with you. I think you were you at the Microsoft Theater with Animotion in 2016, maybe?
Yep. Oh, you know what? No, that was right when I left. I left. Because I was doing both Animotion and Flock
Or
for a
maybe
little
it
bit.
was.
Oh, okay.
It might have been Flock of Seagulls too. I don't remember. But it was really funny. Like
The Bengals?
we were
Were the
sitting
Bengals on that
there,
one?
Yes,
and
At one of
we
them,
said, they were like, we wanted a sound check. We needed a sound check. It's so imperative. And especially because we use digital drums, as you know,
Yeah.
like you've got to get that whole thing together, never mind just the mic and whatever. And so, I mean, but those drums are imperative to sound check because it's a big component of our tracks, right?
Yep.
And so they were saying you're not going to get a sound check, and I was just like, oh, I didn't even care about me so much. I'll figure it out on the mic, but I wanted the drummer to have the sound check because of how important it is. So
Sure.
There we are. We had a makeup artist and everything. We're sitting downstairs in the green room, and all of a sudden they're like, it was 10 minutes before opening the doors, and they said, oh, we're going to get you a sound check.
Oh my
And here's
God.
Christina, the glamour girl, and her hot rollers. And I'm like, oh my God. And so there we were on stage, me and my hot rollers, and the doors are opening and we're doing the sound check. I mean, it was kind of mortifying. I do have to say that in that moment, I was mortified.
Yeah.
That's not the first time that's happened, though. Actually,
Well, it happened
you
after
sound
that.
check and
That
hot
was the
rollers
first time.
a couple times. I think you did that with when we opened for Boy George in Berlin.
No.
No.
Oh man, the Boy George story. That's because that week of Microsoft Theater, I think we also did the Honda Center in Anaheim, and sorry, SAP Center in San Jose, hockey arena, big place, and that guy George blew my mind, and I want to sing his praises, man. He's got great, Mike Scorer and George go a long way back, and they're close, but. Well, they just, I think there's an appreciation and a respect, from both. And I think that it's really nice to watch that. But at that show, something happened with the sound and all the entire PA went out.
That happened to us. That happened to us in Thousand
Did
Oaks.
it? Okay. And there were only monitors.
Boy George.
So George turned the monitor speakers around. He brought his acoustic guitarist in. The band just sat out because the only audience is only going to hear what the front monitors were going to hear. And he basically did this show a cappella with a guitarist. It was unbelievable.
So
and it was incredible, man. I have so much respect for that dude. And when, you know, as an objective audience member, when I watch things like that, I think, you know, there are a lot of bands that have been saved by production and by, you know, studio magic. That dude is full on rock star as much as you can
Mhm.
possibly get, and doesn't act like it. He's so shy
No,
and
he's
humble, you know.
He's
super,
So
so
super cool.
gracious.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had done some television shows with Boy George back in the 80s. And then this was the first time seeing him since I think 84 or 85, right? So after our sound check, we all stopped and I said hello and I reminded him of where we met each other. And he was like hysterical. He goes, that was a long time ago. And there's a lot going on then. And, you know,
right,
alluded to like the craziness that we were all living in the 80s, right?
right.
But we were in Thousand Oaks and there was a torrential thunder rainstorm. And that happened to Boy George there
Mhm.
too. And the way he handles it with such a plum and grace is
Mhm.
unbelievable. Like he was just like at one point he joked, he goes, "Oh, it must be something with me," you know, and he instead of like, you know, some people would pull a diva move.
Right.
He did not. He, as a matter of fact, he kind of stepped up as like the orator to take the audience through just waiting for the electricity to get turned back on, or they did have generators. So eventually the generators got turned on, but right there with you, he's got elegance and grace under fire, big time.
You should be writing the book. Honestly, you're right. Not a lot of like today's artists would do that, right? They
Right.
No,
are,
yeah.
are there contemporary artists that you guys look up to right now that like maybe you start, Christina, and then work your way through?
Jeez, that's a tough.
Oh
Okay, and
my.
I'll bring it up as you're thinking about it. I
Hmm.
I had a great Portland songwriter friend of mine that had moved to Nashville, right? And we talked about how moving into an area like that where it's just rife with songwriters and incredible songwriters. You walk into a little pub or a little, you know, small bar, and you're going to see 5 different people that wrote 20 platinum records, right? And so we talked about like the Taylor Swift phenomenon, right? Where she's the biggest thing on the planet right now.
Mhm.
And for me, I'm so into the Swifty thing just because, you know, she got her success out of being a songwriter herself. She was writing her own material. She's obviously an intelligent businesswoman. I love
Oh,
and applaud the way she took care of her crew and her band. And when she had her success, she in turn returned that success to everybody
Mhm.
else that helped her get there. So for me, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, and a lot of musicians I know dog her because she's popular, and which is
well,
silly
not
to me,
me.
right?
I mean, her credo is incredible. I agree with you. Her credo is like it doesn't get any better. She didn't forget about anybody, you know. She didn't look down on that first rung that she was on. Everybody who was there with her in her journey, she has taken along. And you know, I happen to like Taylor Swift. I know some of my friends don't like her. I happen to like her stuff. I like a lot of her lyrics. But even if you don't say love her style or love her sound, she is so prolific. I mean,
Mhm.
you tell me any other artist who is as prolific with lyrics as she is. I mean, that's a talent, like in and
Sure.
of itself. You can take out everything else if you want. But yeah, I mean, I think there's, you know, I like a lot of the artists today, to be honest with you. I like Dua Lipa. Um, I think I love the sultriness of her voice. I mean, I've got a deep voice, and so I appreciate when there are deep voiced women who are also getting,
Yeah.
you know, a shot at things. Oh my God.
Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish, I was just gonna
Yeah.
say that. That's so
Yeah.
funny you said that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I heard her, do, a Howard Stern show, and as an opera singer, I let me just interject that, and I'll tell you why. You know, when you have to sing super high notes and you have to sing in a super incredibly large, wide range, That's not easy to do, right? Some pop singers keep it here in 5 notes, but Billie Eilish has a range that goes into the stratosphere, literally. And she did a Howard Stern radio show one morning, and even Howard Stern commented. And when I heard her sing and realized she was doing that at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Oh man. Yeah.
like singers don't like to get into a studio until afternoon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you just you want your chops warmed up, right? And she said that she got up at 2 o'clock in the morning with her mom. They drove in from like wherever they were on the island someplace. And, she was doing it acoustically with her brother. And it was so point on as like a classically trained singer, musician, even. I mean, opera singers would have been hard pressed to be doing what she was doing at 4 a.m. I mean, it was off the hook.
Yeah, that's cool, then. How about you, Danny?
It's hard for me. I have to admit, when I go out and pay for a ticket to go to a show, I'm still going to some of the old school bands.
Me too.
My time. I really am.
Who'd you just go see?
I went and saw Metallica not too long ago. Anytime Stevie Wonder's around, I'll go see him. He's my absolute favorite, musician on the planet. Right. But I do think no matter what, it still takes so much work. Even the new school of artists, life is different now for sure. But the production that goes into making you look and sound good, and you can't fake it. On SNL, and people did, and that didn't work out so well. Right? But it's hard to fake it. And of course, your attitude and the love that you give back to the fans is something that you do learn quickly. And if you don't have that, it just they unfortunately turn on you pretty fast. So I think that anyone that's out there that's successful, I have respect for, because it's a tough world, and it may be harder in some ways with the way that people are judged today on social media. Instant judgment, right away.
That's true.
So they have it harder in different ways. But I don't know what it would be like to do it in there at this time, at that young impressionable age. So hands down to all of them for sure.
I got to ask, you said you saw Metallica. Was it's the new show in the round, right?
Yeah, I went to go see it at the place where the soccer.
The LA Galaxy.
What's that called?
SoFi?
SoFi, thank you, SoFi.
Yes.
Yeah,
that
cool
was fantastic.
Venue.
Yeah. I have yet to go. I want to go to Vegas and see someone play there at the new. Was that the big dome?
You went, Kevin, right? Didn't you go?
The Sphere. I went to the Sphere. Oh,
that's
my
what
God.
I want to go see.
Oh yeah, that just opened, right?
Wherever they play.
You did that with Bono, right? Did you see U2?
I saw U2. Yeah, my girlfriend and I went for Valentine's Day, and
nice.
It was, I will tell you, sorry to get on that soapbox, but what I saw was absolutely the future of what's going to happen in live entertainment, because they're building more, right? I think there are 2 other Spheres now that are being in production. They're in production. But a friend of mine is one of the directors of hospitality there. And man, I felt like such a rock star. This dude hooked me up. I got seats, the best seats I could get, because they were sold out so long ago. We're way in the back, right? And I even the worst seat in that place is obviously like greater than most any place else. But he put us in a box, and we're right next to Priscilla Presley, and they had a whole feature on Elvis, because Bono's a big Elvis fan, and they're in Vegas, and so they spotlighted her. But as musicians, and you'll appreciate this, the most fascinating thing to me was that it holds 20,000, and they've
God, I didn't know that.
It does, and they have speakers in there that are directional, so you can be in any one of the 20,000 seats, and speakers are pointed directly at you. So what you hear is different and isolated from what the person next to you gets. So they have an example of this out in the lobby, where you can stand in these aisles, and they have like 4 columns, and they project music along these 4 columns. So if you're sitting here and 4 feet away, there's a person here, you're in front of these speakers, and the speakers can sing in Italian, and then you move over to the next row 4 feet away, and it's singing to you in Mandarin. And then if you go next door to that, it's English. So you can be there and have a direct, customized sort of experience.
Gosh.
It's fascinating to me. And then besides that, the chairs have like subwoofers that are directional as well. So there's a point where a helicopter flies over you and you can feel like the rotor, the sound of the rotors underneath you going from left to right. It's so crazy, but
Wow.
it was awesome. And it's
4D, 3D,
it truly was. And you too.
Or like being at the
40
Griffith Observatory.
on top of the roof. Yeah, on top of the Greek, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so Kim, we didn't get to you. How about some modern artists? Are you inspired by anybody?
It's totally fine you didn't get to me because I'm so out of like the modern loop, like seriously, because I'll turn on like the radio station, old school radio station, right? Like for whatever it's worth, my go-to is 93.5. So yeah. And the thing is, like, if I'm listening or I'm like switching back and forth, it's a song that resonates with me. Not necessarily because, I mean, who really puts out albums anymore anyway?
Right, that's true. Yeah.
So it's like if a song like really hits me in my soul place, I'm like, ooh, that's good. Who is that?
Yeah.
And then I'll listen to it like on rotation or I'll YouTube it or something like that. I don't do Spotify. I'm a weird little pixie. So
a lot of us old schoolers are, right?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way as Kim too. And I do have to say, like, well, that's not true. I listen to both, but I don't know. I tend to go back and listen to the older music as well. What was that show you saw, Danny, at Sugar Beats, the Hollywood Bowl last summer? And I said, where are you? And I think it had like a really cool Spanish influence.
Oh, it's I usually go see once a year. Brazilian. What's his name? I'm forgetting.
Yeah, it begins with an M, I think.
Oh, not Henry Mancini. No. I'm forgetting right now. I'll remember in a second. As soon as
That's okay.
My favorite part of the show so far has been like all the different times that Kim freezes up. It's a beautiful smile she has frozen right there. It's so nice.
Every time, but that's good.
Sergio Mendes.
Oh, Sergio Mendes.
Yeah.
That's great.
I bet that was amazing.
Yeah, that's fabulous with all the can dancers and the music, the beautiful Brazilian music. So it's
Well, how about maybe you guys could probably collectively touch on this one. I love to ask what would be a perfect pairing for you guys. We talked about the different ensembles where these, we'd have, 5 or 6 different bands from an era. What's the perfect band for the Flirts to be? If we're going to put the Flirts at the Hollywood Bowl, where would you guys line best with?
I would love another repeat with the Culture Club any day. But
yes.
That was incredible. I would say, Boy George.
We were kind of thinking it would be cool to do a Bobby Orlando, with the Pet Shop Boys, maybe. I mean,
I've sent, another thing that I like, if there's something that's happening, you know what I mean? Like I'll see on Facebook or social media or something like that, and I'll screenshot it and I'll send it to Christina. And I was like, we should be on this.
Yeah.
We should be doing this. This would be so much fun. One of
I
them
agree
was
with Danny though on the Pet Shop Boys. I didn't even think about that just now, but that would be a really cool thing to do. I mean, the Flirts and West End Girls are happening at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, the production of Bobby Orlando's style of production, it's when you listen to one track and you listen to another, they're borrowing. It's shared sort of production style. So it would be a really cool sounding. It would just flow.
Yeah.
Do they play? Does anyone know?
Oh my God, they've done so many things. They're gigging. They were asked to do soundtracks for a movie, and they were so neat about it and humble. They're like, I don't know if we can like do this, and they wound up writing to a soundtrack. I mean, that would be a really neat thing to do. Would be to partner with the Pet Shop Boys for sure.
That makes sense.
I think, another, and Christina, we were talking about this the other day. One of the voices from that era that kind of goes unrecognized as being spectacular. They only toured a little window, but Aha was another one.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
God, it'd be
it would be fun to do a cover of Aha. We had thought about that for a minute, right?
Yeah, I could see
we
you
still
doing
might
that.
do
I
that.
think you're still entertaining that, Christina.
We're still entertaining
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he has his chops big times. What's
Yeah.
his first name? I know his last name.
I wish I could remember. Hope maybe somebody in the chat will know.
Yeah.
And speaking of the
Last
chat,
name is
this is
Mortimer. His first name is and I don't have my phone. There's two. So there's three guys from that era that I
Morton
think
Harkett.
phenomenal chops that still
Morton
have.
Harkett.
What's
Yep.
his first name?
Morton Harkett.
Oh, you guys
That's
got it?
Morton
Okay.
Harkett.
Okay.
Morton Harkett, Jimmy Somerville, and Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet.
Oh yeah.
Those three dudes had some serious chops. I mean, and they still do. I mean, it is amazing, like to hear Jimmy Somerville. What is his name again from Aha?
Morton Harkett.
Morton Harkett. And then we've performed with Spandau Ballet with Tony
Oh,
Hadley.
yeah, with Tony.
Yeah.
And this is a really funny story. So we were doing the Microsoft Theater at one of the last times. Spandau Ballet was on the ticket. And we're all at the hotel. And I'm sitting there in my room, right? And it's like I got there Friday night. The show is Saturday, whatever. Usually, like I said, we three girls will all go work out together. We start getting our jam and our vibe together, like already just in, girls who sweat together, sing together. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So, but I'm sitting in my room and I'm getting ready to go down to the gym. And all of a sudden I hear this dude like vocalizing, like full on like opera scales, like, and I'm like on another floor. But it's like 10 in the morning.
Wow.
Oh my.
Like, who is doing that at 10 in the morning? So long story short, it's Tony.
You appreciate that. I hate that. Sorry, but no, anyway.
No, most of us would be.
It was
Yeah.
unbelievable. And when
It's a very Christina thing to do, actually.
Yeah, it is a Christina thing to do. That's true. Because I still do like an hour of very old school classical warm-up scales before every gig. And I wound up seeing Tony on Sunday morning down in the lobby. And I'm like, dude, was that you singing at like 10 in the morning? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, how can you be doing that at like 10 in the morning? But I forgot he was on London time. So it's it's like 5:00 in the afternoon, for him.
Right.
But I mean, there was Tony Hadley just whipping out scales like he was in some, conservatory school of music. But those three guys can still put it out there. And they are on point.
Can I add somebody to that list? 'Cause I had him on the show recently, and I'm a big fan. We've done a bunch of shows with him. McKee Thomas from Starship blows my mind. So I mean, everybody knew Starship, like we built the city and that, but way back in the day, right? He was an Elvin Bishop band, like "Fooled Around and Fell in Love" was like the big song that he broke. And I just I had to say, I'm putting you on the spot. I know I didn't ask for this ahead of time. Can you just give me a little acapella of that? And he's like, oh yeah, of course. And he didn't warm up. He just went and sang this so beautifully. It made this kind of experience for me on the podcast. I had goosebumps, and people keep saying, how did you get him to do that? And I said, you know what? He loves to sing. The dude's 74 years old, still sings all those songs in the original key, like "Find Your Way Back" and "Jane," all those really high tunes. He still nails all those notes, man. And that's a tricky thing, because you guys know that muscle, no matter how much you train it, right? Once you get to a certain age, there's nothing you can do. If that voice, muscle's gone, it's gone, right? It's
no, you know what? I'll tell you, I struggle on some of these songs because at my age, 40 years later, and I don't mind sharing this, like,
wait, you're 39. What?
Yeah, right. Like the changes that women go through also hormonally really change your vocal cords physically as well. And, these songs go a lot in between what's called a chest and a head voice.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to navigate some of those places now. Now we're still all singing them in the original keys, Danny, Kimmy, and I. But when I first decided to come back and do this, I was there was a really rude awakening for me. And talk
Okay.
about eating some humble apple pie.
Mhm.
It was me, because I got the tracks and I'm in my car and I start singing, and all of a sudden I'm like, I can't sing this. Like, I mean, the stuff I used to do, it was the 80s till like 4 a.m, right? And then go out the next day, get on a plane, not warm up, be screaming and yelling in a club the night before, get onto stage the next day, and just wing it. And it'd be point on, like point on. Um, so I was just like, holy cow. So I actually I said, oh boy, I got to get these chops back. And that year I went for 2 voice lessons a week, and I started lifting. I mean, it's like you said, it's a muscle. It's like a bicep. And I'm like, I hope this muscle still even has the ability to come back to what I was
Yeah.
able to do back then. And I took lessons, and I went back to like old school vocalizing every single day before we put this show on in 2011. And still to this day now, if I want to sing these songs, it's not like the old days where I could just like waltz on and not care. Like, I actually practice probably at least 4 times a week, at least, still,
Wow.
to be able to
Yeah.
do this show and to sing these songs in their original keys.
Yeah.
That's
And
commitment,
also,
man.
your voice drops as you get older. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you even have the squeakiest, like Minnie Mouse voice in high school. As you get older, your chords get fatter and thicker. And so when they're coming together, like these are your 2 chords, they don't have that same thinness. And so
Yeah.
you really have to like figure out how to create those sounds with a different muscle.
I was just listening to an interview with John Bon Jovi about that.
So did I.
right?
I heard
Because
the same
y-
one.
y-
Yeah.
yeah. So he talked about how that chord he had replaced with rubber, right? And so like he had to train himself. He's been working for 2 years to be able to get
Wow.
any kind of muscle because the muscle memory is gone. There is no muscle there anymore, and he had to. And he doesn't know that he's really going to be able to do it, which is
That's so funny, because this is the article I've been saving to read about
Oh
Bon
yeah,
Jovi right here,
Yeah.
and that
man.
whole thing.
Everyone's gonna
Is
see
it-
it and read it.
You know that well, to your point, Christina, Deborah Gaynor here in the chat saying Christina's being humble, her voice still rocks, and it's nice to the humility part is really important. This and in the chat too, it's nice. So Caleb Rankin, my son,
I saw that.
Yes.
he's also a singer. He's a hip hop singer, and he's over in Thailand. He moved himself to Thailand a month ago, and so
Oh
he
my gosh.
Congrats.
Hi,
I'm glad.
Caleb.
I'm glad to
Hey,
see him here.
Caleb.
He's liking all your
Hi.
setups here. That kid. So he was an amazing drummer growing up, and everybody kept saying at the shows, "Well, of course you're a drummer. Your dad's a drummer." Nobody wants to hear that, right? So
No.
he's like, "What can I do that's exactly the opposite of where my dad is?" So he
Yeah.
became a rapper and a hip hop singer, and
Of course. Yeah.
That's
but
cool.
man, the work that he put in to develop a voice after not having done that his whole life was amazing, because his influence are a lot of modern artists that have all the vocal runs, that are oftentimes just completely done by autotune, right? But he really, it's been awesome to watch the persistence and the dedication, and I'm proud as hell of that kid to just say, I don't know anybody in Thailand. I want to go and experience
Yeah.
the world. And so I'm just going to get rid of everything and get a one-way ticket. So
That's really
That's
wonderful.
that's such courage.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is what's called personal courage. And I always really admire and salute that. Good for you, Caleb. Good
Yeah.
for
Right
you.
on. And obviously you've got some past here with Deborah Gaynor here. She's like excited to see you here. So
I know she
she's-
needs to call me. I've been trying to find her. None of her old numbers work.
there you go.
My
Well,
number's
Deborah,
still the same.
Deborah,
Hi, Deborah.
you can send over some message on the if you go to accesskevin.com, there's a contact page there, and you can I'll make sure that Christina has your information. So
Cool.
well, let me ask you guys this, and I know that I've taken up a ton of your time, but I know that you've got some shows coming up in the fall, right? You got a show coming up, a big one you're planning for.
I'm going
right?
to tell you a really cool story
Okay.
about a really exciting gig. So we were in Chicago, and Kimmy and I were at breakfast, and our manager, Joseph Lodato from the Flirts, is 86 years old. Okay.
Wow.
I have such admiration and such respect for him. At 86, he is sharp as a tack. He finished writing a book last year. He's helping somebody write a book now. He moved from New York back to Italy to his home place. He's from Sicily originally. And Joe is always so cool and a great manager and kept his word and just like a stand up, which is you don't find a lot in this industry, as
True.
we know.
As we
But
know.
that was Joe Lodato. So Kimmy and I are sitting there in this like hotel, like coffee shop, like having our eggs and oatmeal. And I get this call, and I'm looking at this number, and it's like, well, this is weird. It's from like Italy. And it was Joe Lodato. This was just 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And I said, "Oh my God, Joe, how are you doing? I know you moved to Sicily," because we had reconnected, he and I, over the last couple of years. And he goes, Christina, what are you doing on November 13th? And I'm like,
17th.
17th, right? And I'm like, nothing. So there he is in Italy, my old manager from 40 years ago. And he goes, well, you're going to come to Rome and do a gig.
Oh
Mhm.
my
So
God.
the Flirts are
Wow.
going to Italy, and they never gigged in Rome, not even in the 80s. And it is beyond exciting that Danny, Kimmy, and I are going to Rome in November to do a show in Italy
What?
that our
Wow.
old manager put together. It's like kind of like surreal.
Very
Heck
kismet.
yeah, it is,
Yeah.
man. Well,
So-
like I said, had you not paved the way for this, 40 years later, man, there's no way that kind of stuff would happen. The um, I know that I have a link below. So if you guys are listening to this later and you're not actually watching this live, if you go to the flirtsofficial.com, I will make sure that November 17th gig
It's
is up on
16th,
the
sorry.
oh,
Saturday.
November 16th.
Yes.
Saturday, November 16th, the Flirts will be playing in Rome, Italy. So we'll make sure that is dialed up. And as far as this summer goes, what are you guys doing to keep yourselves busy?
There's a lot of things we're waiting to hear about stuff right now. So we're hoping to do Pershing Square in LA, but they're doing renovations and they don't know what the jam is yet in terms of capacity and so on and so forth. But we're hoping that might happen. There's some other stuff that we're waiting to hear that we might be doing with Jim from FKOA. As well, but he's solidifying that. So I really can't put anything out right now, but we'll definitely let you know once that stuff is set in stone.
Cool.
Stay tuned. ...
Yeah. I'll make sure, I'll have a link to the website. So if you guys get there later and you go to accesskevin.com, you can find this interview there. You can access theflirtsofficial.com and you can get any update coming shows. Certainly want to be able to come back after Rome and get a recap on what happens there. But
that's so exciting. I can't even tell you. It's a dream. That's for me, that's kind of like for Danny, the boy George was like a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
I have to say right now, the Greek and this Rome gig for me are really kind of like bucket list dream.
Man, yeah, what a blessing, right?
Yeah.
We all should be so lucky. I should be, at the end of the day, when you look back at some of these things that we've been able to do. For me, I know for my own self, I know that if I could tell 15-year-old Kevin Rankin, I'd be doing some of the things that I'm doing, I never would have believed it.
Yep.
I love to ask people on the show about legacy. It's important to me. I think a lot about this. And so at the end of your days, when you're looking back and you're looking at the formation of Christina Criscione's life, what would you say you want to be remembered for?
Kindness.
Okay, nice. Danny?
Kindness for sure. Kindness and love.
Yeah.
I think for me, a big adventure, endless possibilities of adventure. Sort of.
Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah. Are you an adventurous person? You like to go out and just experience
Yeah,
Are you an adrenaline junkie?
No, not an adrenaline junkie. More about like experiences, like meeting people, seeing places, trying new things, music, food, culture, that sort of thing. Travel, of course.
Mhm.
Right
and
on.
trying to get as many people to come along for the ride with me as possible.
Amen. Yeah. I know Kimmy's an adrenaline junkie because she's jumping out of a plane this weekend. So Kimmy,
Saturday afternoon.
yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, as far as things that you want Kim
I
Rowe to
don't
be
know,
remembered
the
for?
words that come to mind: love, kindness, compassion, heart-to-heart connection, a whole big laughs, and a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, so much positivity. I love it. I love it, man. Well, that
No,
is
we're really lucky. Like the three of us are lucky. We're really fortunate to have each other, like in this journey. I don't, this journey could be very different if it wasn't for the three individuals. And we're all blessed, each of us, to have each other. Like, that you've been in bands before. I mean, I was just, I do want to tell you, interestingly enough, we are going to be doing a new single. We're going to do a cover. I can't tell you what it is yet. But we are working with Kevin Cofield, who's a music director. He works a lot with Boys to Men, NSYNC, Kylie Minogue. And he and Tiffany Shears, who has played keyboard for us before, have been working on the track that we're going to be doing. And so that's going to be coming up within this year. To do a release, and it's a cover of an 80s song. So we're really excited about that. But we're definitely not going to tell you what the song is until we release it.
Not yet.
Do you have a sort of a tentative release date planned?
You know what, we sort of did, but we kind of had to rescind that only because Kevin is so busy right now. I'm touring. Just trying to get to do the tracks next month. I think he's going to fly in for one day because he's got the craziest touring schedule with is it Boys to Men or NSYNC? I don't know, one of the boys groups, but they're going from town to town to town. So hopefully that one date will work in July. We have it on calendar right now. So I hope that still stands true for July.
Well, and
but you know what? I'm a big believer in not rushing anything. Like I want the process to be creative, and I want the right people there. Both Tiffany and he offered, well, do you want to do this in another studio and have us come? And I'm like, I am old school. Like I am totally old school. I'm like, no. I want everybody in the studio. I want to feel the vibe. I want everybody to feed on each other's vibe. I'm a big believer that, people feed each other's creative juices. And so that's what I want. Like I'm not of the new school.
That's great, man. Well, I think, as far as the positivity goes and you talked about how fortunate you were to have this group, together. You exude that kind of positivity when you're on stage. So if you guys are watching this out there and you haven't caught the Flirts live, I'm telling you, it's what we all need right now. You can come away from that with a little bit of a release from some really difficult times in your life. You can go and just enjoy the show. Richard Blade nailed it when he said that it's kind of like a flashback at the times that life was just a lot easier, a lot more positive. So again, folks, if you go to theflirtsofficial.com, we'll make sure that upcoming dates are there. You can look at some old videos and the ladies performing some of these amazing costume changes and choreography and presentations. And I really want you to know how much I appreciate you being here. This is awesome.
Well,
Kevin, we love you and thank you for
having
us.
One of the kindest
we
people
love you
in
so
music
much.
business, hands down. You just don't come across people like Kevin that often.
No, Kevin, that when we see you, you make us all three of us just light up. I mean, we are all family, but you're definitely, I hate to say it, like our favorite. Don't get mad at
Yay!
You didn't know that, did you?
Well, I jokingly said this is kind of like girls' night out for me, right? I get to hang with the girls and until we get a chance to be on stage again together or backstage, then this is the next best thing. And I was grateful. I was grateful to be able to get to share it with people on the show. as you know, Danny, I've got tomorrow the same time, 5:00. I've got Stevie Salas on this show, and an amazing drummer percussionist Mark Powers is on my show Friday as well, and he's like this secret weapon for the Northwest. People that don't know him have seen him play because he just seems to get on every tour that comes through. Everybody that wants him in the studio, he kind of slips under the radar from the public eye, but I like having people like that share some of the experiences, because I have people all the time asking me, man, how do I get a gig, a national gig with these artists? And they think that it's just, you make a phone call and land a gig. And it's so much about the work that gets you there, which is exactly what you were talking about. So the Flirts, Danny McKee, Kim Rowe, Christina Criscione. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much. And for all of you guys in the chat and everybody that was watching, just come back here again tomorrow, 5:00. Go to accesskevin.com and see all the old ones. There have been like 325 episodes so far in the last.
Wow,
It's amazing.
It's nuts. Okay. Well, thanks to COVID, man. That was what I got to do when we weren't gigging,
Hey, that was a positive spin out of something that, could have just gone the other way. So, that shows that, you were looking for the silver lining. So good for you.
I missed our connection, this kind of thing, and the only other thing I got to do was take my daily walks with the pug that's sitting here at my feet, which, Christina, you talked about this. The next time I see you guys, we got to find some trails to hike, right? So
big time.
Absolutely.
Big time. Yep. Hike City, for sure.
Yep.
Right on. All right, Flirts, have a beautiful week. It's great to see you, and I'm excited to hear the new single, and congratulations on the gig in Rome. I look forward to catching you guys again soon.
Sounds great.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you guys too.